Yo, what's good with you? Back in black with another Enlisted video. If you guys are new to the channel and you love shooting games just like me, make sure you aim for that like button and shoot that subscribe button as well. It'll help you find better teammates and improve your skill-based matchmaking. Today we are back with another gameplay analysis on the Pacific campaign, playing as the Japanese faction. I do want to remind you guys the reason that I make these gameplay analysis is so that essentially I can go through my entire thought process on the way to victory or defeat. It is varied. I am not going to always show you wins. I will show you losses sometimes as well, so I can talk about where I can improve, but the whole point is so that you can maybe extrapolate something from the gameplay and make yourself a better player overall. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? So to go into a little more detail, obviously we are here playing Confrontation. It doesn't necessarily matter what game mode you are playing. First thing you want to do, I try to program this, you see it in all my videos, you want to get that rally point up as soon as possible. Not only does this give your team a spawning advantage, but if you put it from an angle that they wouldn't necessarily expect you to attack from, it can have devastating consequences for the enemy team. You will also notice that I called in that bombing run. In retrospect, I probably should have called it in a little further back where they were responding from, but considering that this is Confrontation, I did not know exactly where they were going to attack from, so I just wanted to put it close enough on the point to where if anybody was on it that was an enemy, they would get blown up, or at the very least it would deter them from attacking, giving my team more time to push onto the point and actually capture it faster. So whichever way you want to go about it, bombing runs are definitely very useful to call in at the beginning of a match as well. So as you can see, the opening strategy was very effective, and as the old saying goes, if it is not broke, do not fix it. So as I'm running up to the second point, I'll try to get another rally point up as soon as possible and as close as possible to the objective to give my team, you know, continuing momentum, if that makes any sense, because this game is very momentum based. If your team has a sense of superiority and like they feel like they're just better than the other team, it will translate into the gameplay, not only for you but for the rest of the team as well, which can, I guess, kind of give a stat boost, if you will, to people who are not normally as good all the time. Unfortunately, they caught it very fast. I do not understand how, considering the fact that we were also getting on the point, but luckily we already had rally points that were still established from the last initial push, which I guess is an opening advantage essentially, which is why it's good to capture the first point. That being said, it's easier for us to reinforce, and as they push in from whichever angle, I try to fight at long range, which is another thing that I preach very often with people who play with the Japanese faction. They have a bunch of bolt action rifles and slow rate of fire submachine guns, so essentially if you can keep your fights and engagements to medium, you know, to long range, you do way better as opposed to fighting Americans at close range with high rate of fire Thompsons and semi-automatic rifles and whatnot. I'm pretty sure that's apparent. Despite the fact that we did have the ability to reinforce the middle point faster since we already had rally points established from the initial push, we still managed to lose the point again, as I am left fighting on there mostly by myself. I try to draw it out as long as I can, but to no avail. They eventually capture the point anyways, and at that point it doesn't really matter if you just try to kill her and get as many kills as possible, because all you can really do is hold them off while your team initially captures the point that is behind, which I think I did a pretty good job of that as well. But another thing that I want you guys to pay attention to that I do very often is that when it comes to the placement of rally points, what I really like to do is that whenever I get a glimpse of the map, sometimes I'll pull it up in the middle of you know, actually running, but most of the time I kind of just pay attention to it when I'm respawning with a different squad. I will always try to run to wherever the majority of the team is not pushing from and establish a rally point on that side of the map. So if I see, you'll see right here, my team was pushing heavily from the left side. I run all the way to the beach where they would not expect anybody to attack from and place a rally point there, which gives, you know, essentially a really good flanking maneuver, which allows us to recapture the middle point. And yeah man, a lot of it is skill and good aim, but at the same time setting your team up for success will in turn make it easier for you as well, especially if you're a solo player, which I play 95% of my games solo. So it's like, if you're not, you know, really thinking ahead and outsmarting the majority of the players on the other team, you can't be better than just one of them. You got to be better than 3, 2, 4, it doesn't matter how many. Sometimes you gotta outplay 5 people to your 1 while the rest of your team kind of just acts as cannon fodder, if that makes any sense. So, you know, it is what it is. You gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. So at this point, the middle point is recaptured, and I have already alternated my flank to the other side, away from where my team is, pushing from, the majority of them anyways. I did see a half track coming up to basically wreak havoc on my team, so I did decide to take care of that before establishing the other rally point. But nevertheless, the half track didn't even see me coming, so that's a large chunk of their firepower eliminated from helping them capture that point, which gives my team the major advantage in my personal opinion. So that being said, called in another bombing run. I think that was theirs actually, I'm not 100% sure, but either way it wasn't very effective, didn't get any kills, but I'm sure it deterred them from pushing the point. Another thing I like to preach very often is whenever you get some downtime, whether it be 5-10 seconds, if you're not shooting somebody, you should probably be swapping to an engineer and building something to help you gain a little bit of an edge if they do start attacking you again. Some barbed wire, some sandbags, whatever the case may be, it will never hurt you, it will only get you points. So I don't know why people don't do it more often, but I would really encourage it. So at this point you could say we're messing them up pretty good. I would say we have the advantage considering they only have 1 point left, and I'm sure they're in a bit of a frenzy trying to gather their defenses in this last final attempt to, not lose the game. I will also say that I appreciate the good job that my team is doing. The ferocity and vigorousness in their pushing is actually very useful, and it opens up a lot of room for me to do up my flanking, which is what I normally do, which is how I occur so many kills. Unfortunately, I could not set up a rally point for this last objective, which will turn out to be the cause of why we lose it, because I was going to initially put one up on the beach, but alas, I only had a medic left in my squad, so I just tried to get up there and do whatever I could to, little effect, unfortunately. But this also gives me a chance to prepare some defenses for this point that I am at right now, which we already know we're going to lose that last point, right? Because they're already there, the majority of the enemy team, and what little of my team is trying to push up there is getting wrecked for the most part. So that being said, it makes little sense for me to run up there and try and attack them again. The smarter play, which is what I'm obviously doing, is that I started building some defenses and some, heavy MG nests, which, oh my god, these heavy MG nests are so good. Every chance, especially for confrontation really encourages you setting up defenses as well. You have to think offensively and defensively at the same time. If you know you're not going to be able to capture a point before the enemy does, you might as well run back to where you're previously spawned from and try to build up the defenses over there, because it will come in handy. Another note that I would like to make for this video is that this machine gun with the scope on it, I believe it's the Type 97 LMG. It is very, very, very OP. You wouldn't think so considering the 20 round mag and the amount of recoil, but I will say that if you tap fire it, and if somebody is close range, if you do the quick aim instead of the full aim through the scope, it depends on how you map your controls, but it's actually really, really useful and a great gun. At this point we recaptured, they still got 1 point again, so I'm up here, I hear a half track coming up, so I preemptively switched to my bomber, but for some odd reason I still get annihilated, so I just decide to run up with my rifleman and put some TNT. I always throw some TNT on those Japanese soldiers and bonsai it out, because that's what they're good at. And if you don't know by now, the little explosive plunger stick that they also get, never use that. It is horrible. Very rarely will you blow up a vehicle with it. It's more so of a gimmick and obviously used for fun. So same concept again. They have really strong defenses at the last point. It only makes sense that they do, considering that's the hardest point to capture, but luckily I already have defenses set up, so you know what I'm doing, I'm going right back to the machine gun and I'm putting in that work. So I hope this all makes sense to you as well as I'm explaining it. You just want to always be 1 to 2 steps ahead of the opponent, because even if they do prolong the game by holding that last point, you can always just accumulate a bunch of kills and more experience, which is what the confrontation game mode is best at, gaining XP. So in the last little third of this video, I think what I would like to talk to you guys about is never overextending your forces or your efforts in confrontation, because I am somebody who falls victim to this mindset very often. And what I mean to be more specific is that if you look at the top of the screen right now, you will see that we have more reinforcements than they have, and you would think that we are essentially busting their ass, and we kind of are to an extent because they've been held at this last point for a very long amount of time, and their feeble attempts to recapture the point that we are at right now have all failed every time due to our stout defenses. But contrastly, they have really strong defenses as well at the very last point. And well, I won't say that they have really good defenses, but I will say that they spawn way closer to that point than we do, and we have a very, very long hike that we have to take in order to even get over there and get close to capturing it, whereas they get to spawn right there and basically reinforce it as fast as possible. And I think this is a good coaching point for me as well, because every time I try to get over there with my engineers, I either die, or the one opportunity that I did actually have to set rally point close, I kind of wasted it and made a heavy MG nest instead, which is I would say very dumb on my part, and could have costed us the game. At this point, you can see as well we started losing, and essentially I'm just cycling squads because I rarely ever get in a plane unless I'm just like bored, or you know, I'm just trying to fish a lot of kills, and I'm not trying to do that considering how close the game is. So yeah, man, like I said, don't overextend your forces. If you just cycle squads all the time and just die over and over trying to capture the last point, the enemy can actually come back like they are essentially almost doing right now and can win. But luckily, due to the sheer amount of I guess, you know, my good aim and like I don't know what other factors were in play out here. Confrontation is also a little bit of a sketchy game mode sometimes because you lose at certain points where you feel you should have won. Like if you just captured the last point, you can still lose the game somehow just because they had more reinforcements or something stupid like that. It's hard to explain, but I think again that's why I'm talking so heavily about not overextending your resources or your squads, because just dying a bunch of times can literally cost you the game. And at that point, it doesn't even have so much anything to do with capturing the points as much as it is staying alive and killing them more than they're killing you. So I guess you could say it's a bit of a team deathmatch component to it, as well as an invasion component to it as well. So kind of weird, very confusing sometimes. Hopefully they try to clarify it or adjust it in the future, but I just don't want you guys to be getting a bunch of kills and then wondering why you're losing, because that was me for a good amount of time, especially when I play the confrontation game mode, which for some instance it's really the only reason that I don't even like the game mode. But all that being said, really good defense and knowing when to play defense, knowing when to play offense. And also a last little note, when I was in that plane and I saw the enemy took the lead, I immediately bailed out, because at that point, you know, being in a plane is not something that's going to contribute to the team or help you win at all. You're going to be more effective on the ground, building rally points and actually being on the capture point. So big brain moment. I don't know, sometimes like I see people stay in the plane the whole game and I'm just like, yo, you're not doing anything, please hop out. But again, neither here nor there. Having good defenses, knowing when to switch from offense to defense, and just, you know, all those other little things that I talked about will help you become a better player, especially when you're playing the Japanese faction, which is considered one of the harder factions to play in Enlisted, if not the Italians and Tunisia being also very hard. I heard Germany is pretty hard, and Normandy as well, but neither here nor there. I hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay. I do appreciate you watching. Hopefully you learned something new and become a better player for it. If you felt like you learned something or just enjoyed the gameplay generally speaking, don't forget to aim for that like button and shoot that subscribe button as well. Like I said, I do appreciate you for your time, and I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day. Black Guy out.